Welcome, dear friends, to Hercule Hub, where we unravel the most intricate mysteries with the brilliance of Monsieur Hercule Poirot. I'm your host, Ronan Blackwell, and tonight we're stepping into the shadowy halls of Claret Court for a tale of deception, betrayal, and a vanishing heiress. Settle in with a cup of tea, dim the lights, and let's journey back to 1920s England. Oh, and do tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I'd love to know if you're in London, New York, or perhaps somewhere far more exotic. Chapter 1. Introduction and Setup. The autumn wind whispered through the ancient oaks of Claret Court, a sprawling estate nestled in the heart of Kent. It was October 1927, and the air carried the crisp promise of secrets. The grand house, with its towering columns and glittering windows, stood as a testament to the Sinclair family's wealth, a fortune built on shipping and shrewd investments. But beneath the polished surface of this Georgian masterpiece, currents of greed, envy, and forbidden desire swirled like the mist on the lawns. Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective with his immaculate mustache and piercing green eyes, arrived at Claret Court at the invitation of his dear friend Captain Arthur Hastings. Hastings, a man of earnest charm and unwavering loyalty, was a distant cousin of the Sinclairs and had persuaded Poirot to join a weekend celebration. A splendid affair, Poirot, Hastings had promised, his face alight with enthusiasm. The Sinclairs are throwing a grand party for Evelyn's 25th birthday. She's the heiress, you know, millions at her fingertips. You'll adore the glamour of it all. Poirot, ever skeptical of glamour hiding darker truths, adjusted his perfectly tailored coat and stepped from the motor car. The gravel crunched beneath his polished shoes as he surveyed the estate. The house loomed, its windows like watchful eyes. "Mon ami," Poirot said, his voice soft but precise. "Where there is great wealth, there is often great mischief. The little gray cells, they are already alert." The occasion was indeed grand. Miss Evelyn Sinclair, the sole heiress to the Sinclair fortune, was to be celebrated. At 25, Evelyn was the darling of London society, vibrant, beautiful, and recently returned from a year in Paris, where whispers of a scandalous romance had followed her like a shadow. Her birthday marked not only a milestone, but the moment she would gain full control of her inheritance, a fortune that had tongues wagging and eyes glinting with envy. As Poirot and Hastings entered the grand foyer, they were greeted by a flurry of activity. Servants bustled with trays of champagne, and the air was thick with the scent of roses and beeswax polish. The drawing room, adorned with gilded mirrors and velvet drapes, buzzed with guests in evening dress. Poirot's sharp gaze swept the room, cataloging every detail. The flicker of a nervous smile, the clink of a glass held too tightly, the subtle shift of a glance that betrayed a secret. Hastings, ever the eager guide, introduced Poirot to the key figures of the weekend, each a potential player in the drama to come. Evelyn Sinclair, the heiress herself, stood at the center of the room, her auburn hair catching the chandelier's light. She wore a sapphire gown that shimmered with Parisian elegance, and her laugh was like music. Yet Poirot noted a fleeting shadow in her eyes, as if she carried a burden no one else could see. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, extending a gloved hand, "I've heard of your brilliance. I hope you'll find Claret Court a place of joy, not mystery." Her smile was warm, but her grip lingered a moment too long. Lord Reginald Sinclair, Evelyn's father, was a towering man of 50 with a stern jaw and eyes that brooked no defiance. A widower since Evelyn's mother died a decade ago, he ruled Claret Court with an iron hand, obsessed with preserving the family legacy. His tailored suit and gold watch chain spoke of wealth, but his scowl as he watched Evelyn suggested a rift. "Poirot," he said gruffly, "I trust you're here to enjoy, not to meddle." Poirot merely bowed, his mustache twitching. Cecilia Langston, Evelyn's spinster aunt, hovered near the fireplace, her thin frame draped in a severe black gown. At 42, Cecilia's sharp features and sharper tongue made her a formidable presence. A botanist with a passion for rare plants, she had been cut out of the Sinclair will years ago, a slight she had never forgiven. Her eyes darted to Evelyn with a mix of resentment and calculation. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice clipped, "I study poisons in my greenhouse. Fascinating, don't you think?" Poirot's smile was polite, but his mind filed away her words. Victor Hammond, Evelyn's fiancé, was a handsome artist of 30, with dark curls and a disarming smile. His charm, however, was marred by rumors of gambling debts and a questionable past. He hovered near Evelyn, his hand possessive on her arm. But Poirot noted his nervous glances toward Lord Sinclair. "A pleasure, monsieur," Victor said, his voice smooth as silk. "I hope you'll paint Claret Court in your mind as a place of love." Poirot's eyes narrowed slightly. Love or desperation? Dr. Felix Marot, the family physician, was a reserved man of 38, his spectacles and quiet demeanor masking a keen intelligence. His attentiveness to Evelyn raised eyebrows, and his medical bag, always at his side, hinted at secrets. "Monsieur Poirot," he said softly, "I keep this family healthy, but some wounds are beyond my skill." His cryptic words lingered in the air. Margaret Maggie Poole, Evelyn's childhood friend and companion, was a striking contrast to the heiress. At 24, Maggie's plain features and modest dress belied a fierce loyalty to Evelyn, though Poirot caught a flicker of envy in her gaze as she watched Evelyn laugh with Victor. "I'm just here to support Evelyn," Maggie said, her voice tight. "She's like a sister to me." Poirot nodded, but his mind marked the intensity in her words. As the evening unfolded, the guests gathered for a lavish dinner in the dining hall, where crystal gleamed and candlelight cast long shadows. The conversation was polite but laced with undercurrents. Lord Sinclair toasted Evelyn's birthday, but his words carried a warning. "May you choose wisely in all things, my dear." Evelyn's smile faltered, and she rose, her voice clear but trembling. "My friends," Evelyn announced, "tomorrow I will meet with my solicitor to revise my will. The Sinclair fortune is mine to guide, and I intend to ensure it serves those who truly deserve it." A hush fell over the room. Cecilia's fork clattered against her plate. Victor's face paled. Maggie's eyes widened, and Dr. Marot's hand tightened on his glass. Lord Sinclair's jaw clenched, his knuckles white. Poirot, seated at the far end, sipped his wine and observed. The little gray cells, they were buzzing. He noted Cecilia's flushed cheeks and her muttered comment about ungrateful youth. Victor's forced laughter as he whispered to Evelyn. Maggie's sudden silence, her gaze fixed on her plate. Dr. Marot's calm exterior, yet his fingers tapped a nervous rhythm. And Lord Sinclair, whose glare at his daughter spoke of a man accustomed to control, now facing defiance. After dinner, the guests retired to the drawing room for cards and music, but the air was thick with tension. Poirot lingered, watching as Evelyn excused herself early, claiming a headache. "I'll see you all tomorrow," she said, her smile strained. "It's a big day." She ascended the grand staircase to her bedroom, a heavy oak door at the end of a long corridor, known to be locked each night for her privacy. As Poirot and Hastings shared a nightcap, Hastings chuckled. "A lively bunch, eh, Poirot? But surely no crime here, just family squabbles." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Mon ami, where there is wealth, love, and secrets, there is always the potential for crime. The heart. It is a locked room of its own." Chapter 2. The crime discovered. The dawn broke over Claret Court with a chill that seemed to seep into the very stones of the estate. It was just past 6 o'clock and the household was stirring, the servants lighting fires and preparing breakfast for the guests who had celebrated Evelyn Sinclair's 25th birthday the night before. The air was heavy with the promise of autumn, but something else hung over the grand house, an unspoken dread that no one could yet name. Hercule Poirot, ever an early riser, was in the library, sipping a cup of café au lait and reviewing his observations from the previous evening. The announcement by Evelyn Sinclair, the vibrant heiress, that she intended to revise her will had set the dining room abuzz with tension. Her father, Lord Reginald Sinclair, had glowered. Her aunt Cecilia Langston had bristled. Her fiancé Victor Hammond had paled. Her friend Maggie Poole had gone silent. And Dr. Felix Marrow, the family physician, had watched with an unreadable expression. Poirot's mustache twitched as he recalled these details, his mind already weaving a tapestry of motives. Greed, envy, control, perhaps even love twisted into something darker. His musings were interrupted by a piercing scream that echoed through the house, sharp and raw, cutting through the morning stillness. Poirot set down his cup with precision and rose, his small frame moving with surprising speed toward the source of the cry. Captain Hastings, bleary-eyed but alert, emerged from his room, his dressing gown hastily tied. "Good heavens, Poirot, what was that?" he gasped, hurrying to keep pace. "It is the sound of tragedy, mon ami," Poirot replied, his voice calm but his eyes alight with focus. "We must hasten to the source." The scream had come from the second-floor corridor, where a small crowd was gathering outside Evelyn Sinclair's bedroom. The heavy oak door, carved with intricate vines, stood firmly shut, its brass keyhole glinting in the weak light of a wall sconce. Maggie Poole, Evelyn's childhood friend and companion, stood trembling before it, her face ashen and her hands clutching her shawl. "She's gone," Maggie cried, her voice breaking. "Evelyn, she's not answering. I knocked and nothing." Lord Sinclair pushed through the gathering servants, his face thunderous. "What's this nonsense, Margaret? Evelyn's probably sleeping off last night's champagne." He rapped sharply on the door. "Evelyn, open this door at once." Silence answered, heavy and oppressive. Poirot stepped forward, his presence commanding despite his small stature. "Mademoiselle Poole, you will please explain. Why do you scream? What has alarmed you?" Maggie's eyes were wide with panic. "I came to wake her, as I always do. She locks her door at night, always has since we were girls. But she didn't answer my knock, not even when I called. I tried the handle. It's locked and the key's inside. I saw it through the keyhole. Something's wrong, Monsieur Poirot, I know it." Poirot's gaze flicked to the door, then to the gathered faces. Cecilia Langston, her lips pursed and her eyes sharp. Victor Hammond, his charm replaced by a nervous fidgeting. Dr. Felix Marrow, clutching his medical bag with a grim expression. And the household staff whispering anxiously. "Calm yourselves," Poirot said, his voice steady. "We must enter. Monsieur Sinclair, will you permit?" Lord Sinclair hesitated, then nodded curtly. "Break it down if you must," he growled. Two footmen stepped forward, and with a concerted effort they forced the heavy door, the lock splintering with a crack that echoed like a gunshot. The crowd surged forward, but Poirot raised a hand. "Non, non, remain where you are. Poirot will see first." The room revealed was a vision of elegance, a four-poster bed draped in silk, a mahogany dressing table, and tall windows overlooking the misty gardens. But the bed was empty, the covers neatly turned back as if never slept in. A single chair lay overturned near the fireplace, its velvet cushion askew. On a side table, a crystal wine glass lay on its side, a small puddle of red wine staining the polished wood. The air carried a faint, acrid scent, like bitter almonds. Poirot's eyes darted across the scene, cataloging every detail. The windows, tall and arched, were bolted shut from the inside, their heavy latches untouched. key, as Maggie had said, rested in the lock on the inside of the door, gleaming mockingly. There was no sign of Evelyn Sinclair, no body, no blood, no trace of struggle beyond the overturned chair and spilled wine. It was as if the heiress had vanished into the mist that clung to Claret Court's grounds. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured, his fingers brushing the rim of the wine-glass. He leaned closer, inhaling delicately. The scent of almonds. It is curious, n'est-ce pas? It suggests cyanide, yet there is no body. A most peculiar puzzle. Hastings, peering over Poirot's shoulder, looked baffled. But where could she have gone, Poirot? The door was locked, the windows bolted. It's impossible. Poirot's mustache twitched. Impossible? Non, mon ami. The impossible is merely the possible that has not yet been explained. We must examine all things. The household erupted into chaos. Lord Sinclair's voice boomed, demanding answers. Where is my daughter? Someone has taken her. Cecilia Langston's sharp voice cut through. Taken? Or did she run off with that artist of hers? She cast a venomous glance at Victor, who flushed and stammered. I was in my room all night. I swear it. Maggie sobbed, clutching Dr. Marrow's arm, who patted her awkwardly and said, We mustn't jump to conclusions. Evelyn may have left of her own accord. Poirot raised a hand for silence, his gaze sweeping the room. He knelt by the overturned chair, noting a faint scratch on the floorboards beneath it, as if it had been deliberately moved. He crossed to the windows, examining the bolts, and found a curious mark. A tiny gouge in the wooden frame, barely visible. The wine-glass, he noted, bore only Evelyn's fingerprints, and the spilled wine had left a faint stain on a silk rug, but no other clues emerged. He turned to the butler, a stoic man named Grayson, who stood rigidly by the door. Monsieur, the grounds, have they been searched? Were there footprints in the dew this morning? Grayson shook his head. No, sir. I checked the lawns myself at first light before the scream. The grass was undisturbed, no tracks at all, and the front and back doors were locked all night, as always. Poirot nodded, his mind racing. A locked room, a missing heiress, a hint of poison, and no trace of escape. He addressed the group, his voice calm but commanding. Mesdames et messieurs, we are faced with a mystery most profound. Mademoiselle Evelyn has vanished from a room locked from within with no sign of how she left. Yet Poirot assures you there is an explanation. We must question, observe, and think. He turned to Maggie, his eyes softening but probing. Mademoiselle Poole, you say Evelyn was afraid last night. What did she fear? Maggie hesitated, her hands twisting in her shawl. She didn't say exactly. But after dinner she was pale, nervous. She said she felt watched, like someone was plotting against her. I thought it was just the wine, or the talk of the will. Poirot's gaze shifted to Cecilia, whose fingers tightened on her necklace. Madame Langston, you spoke of poisons last night. Is there cyanide in your greenhouse, perhaps? Cecilia's eyes flashed. I study plants, monsieur, not murder. My greenhouse is locked, and I keep no such thing. But her voice wavered, and Poirot noted it. Victor stepped forward, his charm fraying. This is absurd. Evelyn probably slipped out to avoid her father's control. She's spirited, you know that. Lord Sinclair rounded on him, his face red. You'd know about slipping out, wouldn't you, Hammond? With your debts piling up. Dr. Marrow cleared his throat. Gentlemen, please. I gave Evelyn a mild sleeping draught last night. She complained of nerves. Perhaps she wandered in a daze. His calm tone contrasted with the tension in his eyes. Poirot clapped his hands, silencing the bickering. Enough. We will learn nothing from accusations. Poirot will investigate, and the truth will be found. For now, this room must remain untouched. As the group dispersed, muttering and casting suspicious glances, Poirot lingered, his gaze returning to the wine glass. The almond scent, the locked door, the empty bed, they formed a riddle that teased his mind. He murmured to Hastings, "This is no simple disappearance, mon ami. There is intent here, and perhaps danger. The little gray cells, they are awake." Chapter 3. Investigation begins. The morning sun struggled to pierce the mist enveloping Claret Court, casting a ghostly pallor over the estate. In the library, Hercule Poirot stood like a conductor before an orchestra, his mind orchestrating a symphony of clues and suspicions. The disappearance of Evelyn Sinclair from her locked bedroom, door secured from within, windows bolted, key in the lock, had shaken the household to its core. The overturned chair, the spilled wine with its faint almond scent, and the absence of footprints in the dew-soaked grass formed a riddle that defied logic. Yet Poirot, with his unerring faith in the little gray cells, knew that no mystery was truly impossible. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever the loyal companion, hovered nearby, his notebook open and his brow furrowed. "It's madness, Poirot," he said, shaking his head. "Evelyn's gone, vanished like a ghost. No one could have entered or left that room. Could she have climbed out somehow? A rope, perhaps?" Poirot's eyes twinkled with gentle amusement. "Mon ami, you are fond of the dramatic, n'est-ce pas? A rope, in a sapphire gown, scaling the walls of Claret Court? No, the truth is simpler, yet more cunning. We must question, observe, and think." He turned to the butler, Grayson, who stood rigidly by the door. "Monsieur, summon the household to the drawing-room. Poirot will speak with each in turn." As the suspects gathered, the air crackled with tension. Lord Reginald Sinclair, Evelyn's domineering father, stood by the fireplace, his hands clenched as if restraining his fury. Cecilia Langston, the bitter aunt, sat stiffly, her fingers twisting a handkerchief. Victor Hammond, Evelyn's debt-ridden fiancé, paced near the window, his charm replaced by a nervous tic. Dr. Felix Marrow, the reserved physician, clutched his medical bag, his spectacles reflecting the firelight. Maggie Poole, Evelyn's companion, sat with red-rimmed eyes, her hands trembling. The staff lingered at the edges, whispering among themselves. Poirot began with Maggie, whose scream had alerted the household. "Mademoiselle Poole," he said, his voice soft but probing. "You were closest to Mademoiselle Evelyn. Tell Poirot, what was her state of mind last night?" Maggie swallowed, her voice unsteady. "She was on edge, monsieur. After her announcement about the will, she seemed frightened. She said someone was watching her, but she wouldn't say who. I begged her to tell me, but she just locked her door and told me to go to bed." Her eyes filled with tears, but Poirot noted a flicker of something else. Guilt, perhaps? He turned to Lord Sinclair, whose face was a mask of controlled rage. "Monsieur, you argued with your daughter last night, oui? About this, will she wish to change?" Lord Sinclair's jaw tightened. "Evelyn was reckless, talking of giving away the family fortune to charities and hangers-on." He glared at Victor. "I told her to think of the Sinclair legacy, but she defied me. If she's run off, it's to spite me." His voice shook, but Poirot observed the tremor in his hands. Anger or fear? Cecilia Langston spoke before Poirot could ask, her voice sharp as a blade. "If anyone drove Evelyn away, it's that artist." She pointed at Victor. "He's after her money, everyone knows it. Probably whisked her off to some sordid elopement." Victor flushed, his hands balling into fists. "That's a lie. I love Evelyn. I was in my room all night. Ask the maids." Poirot raised a hand. "Monsieur Hammond, you will please tell Poirot. What is this talk of debts? The little gray cells, they hear whispers of your troubles." Victor's charm faltered, his eyes darting to the floor. I, I've had some bad luck at cards, yes. But Evelyn knew and she didn't care. I'd never harm her. Poirot's gaze lingered, noting the sweat on Victor's brow. Dr. Felix Marrow cleared his throat, his voice calm but strained. Monsieur Poirot, I gave Evelyn a mild sedative last night, a tincture of valerian for her nerves. She was agitated after dinner. I checked on her at 10 and she was fine, locking her door as I left. Poirot tilted his head. And this sedative, Monsieur le Docteur, it could not cause confusion. A wandering, perhaps? Marrow adjusted his spectacles. Not at that dose, but I'll admit her nerves worried me. She spoke of feeling trapped. His words hung in the air and Poirot filed them away. Poirot then moved to the crime scene, returning to Evelyn's bedroom with Hastings and Grayson. The room was as they had left it, bed untouched, chair overturned, wine glass spilled, and the faint almond scent lingering. Poirot knelt by the chair, examining the scratch on the floorboards. Curious, he murmured. This mark, it is deliberate, non? As if to draw attention. He crossed to the windows, inspecting the gouge in the frame. And this, too precise for an accident. He lifted the wine glass, sniffing again. The scent of almonds, it is unmistakable. Cyanide, perhaps, yet no body. Hastings, fetch the housekeeper. We must test this wine. The housekeeper, Mrs. Ellis, confirmed the wine came from a bottle served at dinner, but no one else reported illness. Poirot sent a sample to a local chemist for analysis, his mind racing. Back in the library, Poirot requested private interviews. First, he spoke with Cecilia, whose greenhouse was a treasure trove of rare plants. Madam, you spoke of poisons. Is cyanide among your collection? Cecilia's eyes narrowed. I told you I study plants, not poisons, but yes, cyanide can be derived from certain seeds. Apricot pits, for instance. My greenhouse is locked, and I've lost no such thing. Poirot noted her defensiveness, and a search of her room later revealed a missing vial from her botanical kit, though she claimed it held only a harmless tincture. Victor was next, his hands shaking as he sat. Poirot produced a crumpled letter found in Victor's room, addressed to Evelyn in his handwriting. My darling, my future is yours, it read, but the ink and phrasing suggested a draft, perhaps forged. Monsieur, this letter, it is not genuine, is it? Poirot asked. Victor stammered, I wrote it to reassure her, that's all. I'd never hurt her. But his eyes betrayed panic. Dr. Marrow admitted to prescribing sedatives but denied any harmful intent. His medical bag contained laudanum and other drugs, but no cyanide. I cared for Evelyn, he said softly. She trusted me. Poirot noted his intensity, wondering if it masked more than professional concern. Maggie's interview was tearful but revealing. She admitted to lingering in the library after dinner near Cecilia's botanical journals. I was looking for a book to calm Evelyn, she insisted. But Poirot caught her lie. Her room was on the opposite wing, far from the library. Her locket, which she clutched tightly, bore an inscription. Forever mine. When pressed, she claimed it was a gift from Evelyn, but her blush suggested otherwise. Poirot then explored the room again, noticing a hidden panel in the fireplace, barely a foot wide. It opened to a hollow space, but no passage led beyond. A red herring, perhaps, Poirot mused to Hastings, or a clue to something more. He found a torn scrap of silk caught in the door's lock, its deep green matching Cecilia's shawl. When confronted, Cecilia scoffed, My shawl? I haven't worn it in days. Someone's framing me. As the interviews concluded, the chemist's report arrived. The wine contained a trace of cyanide, enough to sicken but not kill. Poirot's eyes gleamed. A poison, yet no victim. A locked room, yet no escape. This is a game, Hastings, and Poirot will play it to the end. Chapter 4. Clues and red herrings. The afternoon sun hung low over Claret Court, its weak rays barely penetrating the mist that clung to the estate like a shroud. Hercule Poirot, his impeccable suit untouched by the damp, moved with purpose through the sprawling grounds, his mind a whirl of observations. The disappearance of Evelyn Sinclair from her locked bedroom, door secured, windows bolted, key inside, remained a puzzle that teased his little gray cells. The trace of cyanide in the spilled wine, the overturned chair, the gouged window frame, and the green silk scrap caught in the lock formed a tantalizing but incomplete picture. Now, as the investigation deepened, Poirot sought the threads that would unravel the truth, or lead him astray. Captain Arthur Hastings trailed behind, his notebook clutched tightly, his face a mixture of awe and confusion. "Poirot, this is maddening," he exclaimed, dodging a low-hanging branch as they approached Cecilia Langston's greenhouse. "We've got cyanide, a locked room, and no Evelyn. Are we chasing a ghost, or is someone playing a devilish game?" Poirot's mustache twitched with a faint smile. "A game, mon ami, most certainly. But Poirot does not chase ghosts. He pursues facts. The clues, they speak, but some whisper lies. We must listen carefully." He paused at the greenhouse door, its lock gleaming new and unyielding. "Let us begin here where Madame Langston cultivates her secrets." The greenhouse was a jungle of exotic plants, their leaves brushing against glass walls fogged with condensation. Poirot's sharp eyes scanned the shelves, noting vials of powders and liquids, neatly labeled but ominous in their potential. He spotted a muddy footprint near a tray of apricot pits, known to yield cyanide when processed. Bending down, he examined the print, its size and tread suggesting a man's shoe. "Curieux," he murmured. "This print it is fresh. Hastings, fetch Monsieur Victor Hammond's boots for comparison." Hastings returned with a servant who confirmed the footprint matched Victor's riding boots. When confronted, Victor, his usual charm fraying, stood in the drawing room, his hands fidgeting. "I was in the greenhouse yesterday sketching orchids for a painting," he insisted, his voice tight. "Evelyn loved my sketches. I wasn't sneaking about." Poirot's gaze lingered on Victor's flushed cheeks, noting a bead of sweat despite the cool air. "And yet, monsieur, you did not mention this visit before. The little gray cells, they wonder why." Poirot next turned his attention to Cecilia's study, adjacent to the library where her botanical journals lay open. A page, dated the previous week, detailed experiments with cyanide extraction, though Cecilia had claimed no such substance was in her possession. The journal's ink was fresh, and a smudged fingerprint marred the margin. Not Cecilia's, Poirot noted, but too indistinct to identify. "Madame Langston," he said, holding up the journal, "you write of poisons with great interest. This fingerprint, it is not yours. Who has read your secrets?" Cecilia's face paled, but her voice remained sharp. "My journals are private. Someone must have snooped. Perhaps Maggie, always lurking about." Her accusation hung in the air, and Poirot filed it away, his mind noting her quickness to deflect. In Maggie Poole's room, Poirot found a locket tucked beneath her pillow, its silver surface engraved with "Forever Mine," and containing a miniature portrait of Evelyn, her smile radiant. Maggie, when questioned, clutched the locket tightly. "It's a keepsake," she said, her voice trembling. "Evelyn gave it to me years ago when we were girls. It means nothing sinister." But Poirot observed her flushed cheeks and the way her fingers lingered on the locket as if it held more than friendship. "Mademoiselle," he said gently, "the heart, it can hide truths even from oneself." Dr. Felix Marrow's medical records examined in the library revealed Evelyn had visited him frequently for nervous episodes in recent months. A note in his precise handwriting mentioned a sleeping draught administered the night of the disappearance, but Poirot found a vial of laudanum in Marrow's bag with a label partially scratched off, suggesting tampering. "Monsieur le Docteur," Poirot asked, "this laudanum, it is safe, oui? Or could it mask another substance?" Marrow adjusted his spectacles, his voice steady but his eyes wary. "It's standard, monsieur. I'd stake my reputation on it." Poirot's smile was polite, but his mind marked the doctor's defensiveness. Lord Reginald Sinclair, questioned in his study, was a storm of indignation. "My daughter's been taken and you waste time with footprints and lockets?" he roared. Poirot, unruffled, noted a locked drawer in Sinclair's desk, which the butler later opened to reveal a stack of letters. Correspondence with a solicitor discussing Evelyn's will. One letter, dated a week prior, urged Sinclair to secure the estate before Evelyn's changes took effect. "Monsieur," Poirot said, "you wish to control the fortune, non? Did this lead to extreme measures?" Sinclair's face reddened. "I'd never harm my daughter. Those letters are business, nothing more." The investigation took a turn with a red herring. A groundskeeper, Old Tom, approached Poirot near the lake, his weathered face grim. "I saw a figure last night, sir, near the water, cloaked, moving fast. Could have been Miss Evelyn fleeing." Poirot examined the lake's edge, finding no footprints in the soft mud, only a discarded cigarette butt, its brand foreign to the household. "A shadow, perhaps," Poirot mused to Hastings, "but one that distracts. We must not be led astray." Another false lead emerged when a maid, Elsie, reported hearing a foreign voice arguing with Evelyn over the telephone 2 nights prior. Poirot checked the estate's telephone records, but no calls were logged after dinner. A memory or a fabrication? He wondered aloud, noting Elsie's nervous glance toward Cecilia, who had been nearby when the alleged call occurred. Back in Evelyn's room, Poirot re-examined the green silk scrap in the lock, confirming it matched Cecilia's shawl, though she continued to deny wearing it recently. He tested the wine glass for additional fingerprints, finding only Evelyn's, which deepened the mystery. How could a crime occur with so little trace? He noticed a faint smudge on the fireplace panel, suggesting it had been opened recently, but the hollow space inside remained empty. A tantalizing dead end. As the day waned, Poirot gathered the suspects in the drawing room to share preliminary findings, his voice calm but commanding. "Mesdames et messieurs, we have clues. A footprint in the greenhouse, a journal of poisons, a locket of devotion, a tampered vial, and letters of control. Yet we have red herrings, a shadow by the lake, a voice that never spoke. The truth, it hides, but Poirot will find it." The room was silent, each suspect avoiding the other's eyes, their secrets simmering beneath the surface. Hastings, pulling Poirot aside, whispered, "This is a tangle, Poirot. The footprint points to Victor, but Cecilia's journal is damning. And Maggie's locket. Could she be obsessed with Evelyn?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "All are possible, mon ami, but the little gray cells seek the pattern. The cyanide, the locked room, they are pieces of a puzzle we have not yet assembled." As evening fell, Poirot stood alone in the gardens, gazing at the greenhouse. The clues were mounting, but so were the distractions. The truth, he knew, lay in the details, the scratch, the silk, the scent of almonds. "The game continues," he murmured, "and Poirot will play it to the end." Chapter 5. Complications and Twists. The late afternoon light cast long shadows across Claret Court, but the true darkness lay within its walls, where secrets festered like hidden thorns. Hercule Poirot stood in the drawing room, his small frame commanding the attention of the assembled suspects. Lord Reginald Sinclair, his face a mask of barely contained fury. Cecilia Langston, her sharp eyes darting with suspicion. Victor Hammond, his charm eroded by nervous tics. Dr. Felix Marrow clutching his medical bag with a guarded expression, and Maggie Poole, her tear-streaked face betraying both grief and fear. The disappearance of Evelyn Sinclair from her locked bedroom, door secured, windows bolted, key inside, had grown more perplexing with each clue. The cyanide-tainted wine, the overturned chair, the gouged window frame, the green silk scrap, Victor's footprint in the greenhouse, Cecilia's journal, Maggie's locket, and Dr. Marrow's tampered laudanum. Now, as Poirot's investigation deepened, new complications threatened to unravel his carefully woven theories. Captain Arthur Hastings, ever at Poirot's side, leaned in, his voice low. "Poirot, we're drowning in clues, footprints, poisons, letters. But where's Evelyn? Could she really be alive, hiding somewhere?" Poirot's mustache twitched, his eyes narrowing. "Mon ami, the truth is like a rose. It blooms slowly, but its thorns are sharp. We must tread carefully, for the game has just become more complex." The first twist came with a knock at the front door. A telegram delivered by a breathless village boy was handed to Poirot. Its message was brief but electrifying. "Evelyn Sinclair safe in London. Stop. Meet at Claridge's Hotel tomorrow. Stop." The room erupted in gasps. Lord Sinclair snatched the telegram, his voice booming. "She's alive! My daughter's alive!" Victor's face lit with relief, but Cecilia's lips curled in skepticism. "A trick," she snapped. "Evelyn wouldn't flee without a word." Maggie clutched her locket, her eyes wide, while Dr. Marrow adjusted his spectacles, his expression unreadable. Poirot, unruffled, examined the telegram. "Curieux," he murmured. "The paper, it is standard, but the typing, it has an irregularity, a faint smudge on the S. We must verify this." He dispatched Hastings to telephone the telegraph office, which confirmed the message originated from a London bureau but was sent anonymously, the sender paying in cash. A clue or a deception? Poirot mused aloud, his mind racing. The telegram suggested Evelyn was alive, but its anonymity cast doubt, a complication that muddied the locked room puzzle. Poirot turned his attention to a new discovery. A concealed staircase in Evelyn's bedroom, hidden behind a panel in her closet. The panel, cunningly disguised as part of the oak wardrobe, creaked open to reveal a narrow spiral staircase leading to a secret attic chamber. The room was small, dusty, and cluttered with old trunks, but a single item caught Poirot's eye. Evelyn's diary, its leather cover embossed with her initials. The pages, written in her elegant hand, revealed a woman under siege. "I fear for my life," she wrote. "Someone close betrays me. A masked stranger in Paris demanded payment, threatening to expose my secrets. I trust no one, not even those I love." The final entry, dated the night of her disappearance, read, "Tonight, I make my stand. The truth will out." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Mon Dieu, a blackmailer! This changes the game, Hastings. Evelyn planned something, but what?" The diary hinted at a staged disappearance, yet the cyanide and locked room suggested foul play. Was Evelyn orchestrating a trap, or had she fallen victim to one? Returning to the suspects, Poirot pressed Victor about the Paris connection. "Monsieur Hammond, this masked stranger, you were in Paris with Evelyn last year, oui? Did you meet such a figure?" Victor's face paled, his hands trembling. I heard rumors of someone harassing her, but I never saw them. I swear I only wanted to protect her." Poirot noted the quiver in his voice, then produced the forged love letter found in Victor's room. "This letter, it was to manipulate her trust, non?" "Admit it, monsieur." Victor crumpled, confessing, "I wrote it to secure her love. I was desperate with debts mounting, but I'd never harm her." Cecilia, summoned next, was confronted with the missing vial from her botanical kit. "Madame, you claim no cyanide, yet a vial is gone. And this silk scrap, Poirot held up the green fabric. "It is from your shawl found in Evelyn's lock." Cecilia's eyes flashed. "I told you I haven't worn that shawl in days. And the vial, it was stolen, probably by that scheming Maggie always poking about my study." Her accusation was sharp, but Poirot observed her clenched fists, a sign of fear beneath her bravado. Dr. Marrow faced scrutiny over his laudanum vial, its label scratched as if to conceal its contents. "Monsieur, you gave Evelyn a sedative, oui? Could it have been altered?" Marrow's voice was steady but strained. "Impossible. I checked the dose myself, but I'll admit Evelyn confided in me. She feared her father's control and others' envy. I helped her plan an escape, nothing more." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "An escape, monsieur? To where? And why not tell Poirot before?" Maggie's alibi unraveled when a footman trembling admitted seeing her near Evelyn's room at midnight, not in the library as she claimed. Confronted, Maggie sobbed, "I only wanted to check on her. She was so upset after dinner talking about the will. I knocked, but she didn't answer, so I left." Poirot noted her locket, now open, revealing Evelyn's portrait. "Mademoiselle, your devotion? It is more than friendship, perhaps." Maggie flushed, stammering. "She's my dearest friend, nothing else." A new red herring emerged. A stable boy reported finding a woman's scarf near the estate's gate, scented with Evelyn's perfume. Poirot examined it, noting its cheap fabric, unlike Evelyn's Parisian wardrobe. "A plant, perhaps," he murmured to Hastings, "to suggest she fled. But the dew on the grass was unbroken. No one left the estate." As evening fell, Poirot gathered the suspects again, his voice calm but piercing. "Mesdames et messieurs, the mystery deepens. A telegram claims Evelyn is in London, yet it smells of deceit. A diary speaks of blackmail and betrayal. A staircase leads to a secret room, yet no answers. Each of you hides something. Poirot will find it." The room was silent, eyes darting with suspicion. Lord Sinclair's scowl, Cecilia's defiance, Victor's panic, Marrow's reserve, and Maggie's tears formed a tableau of guilt and fear. Hastings, pulling Poirot aside, whispered, "This is chaos, Poirot. The telegram, the diary, the staircase. Are we closer to the truth or further away?" Poirot's eyes twinkled. "We are closer, mon ami, but the truth is a chameleon. The cyanide, the locked room, the blackmailer, they are pieces of a puzzle, and Poirot will fit them together." Standing alone in the attic chamber, Poirot ran his fingers over Evelyn's diary, his mind racing. The masked stranger, the staged clues, the trace of cyanide. Someone was playing a dangerous game, and Evelyn was at its heart. "The heiress, she is clever," he murmured. "But is she the hunter or the hunted?" Chapter 6. The Revelation. The grand hall of Claret Court was a stage set for revelation, its opulent walls and gilded mirrors reflecting the tension of the gathered suspects. The evening of October 1927 had drawn a veil of anticipation over the estate, the mist outside pressing against the windows like an eager audience. Hercule Poirot stood before the household, his hands clasped behind his back, his mustache perfectly symmetrical, his presence commanding silence. Lord Reginald Sinclair, Cecilia Langston, Victor Hammond, Dr. Felix Marrow, and Maggie Poole sat in a semicircle, their faces a gallery of fear, defiance, and guilt. Captain Arthur Hastings stood by the door, his notebook forgotten, his eyes wide with expectation. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice soft but piercing, "we have arrived at the moment of truth. The disappearance of Mademoiselle Evelyn Sinclair from her locked room is no simple vanishing. It is a puzzle of human passions, greed, envy, love, and betrayal. Poirot has observed, questioned, and thought, and now the little gray cells, they reveal all." The room was silent save for the crackle of the fire. Poirot paced slowly, his eyes sweeping over each suspect. Let us reconstruct. Mademoiselle Evelyn, she announced a change to her will, stirring the hearts of those around her. A glass of wine scented with cyanide suggested poison. A locked door and bolted windows implied an impossible crime. A footprint, a locket, a diary, a telegram, all pieces of a game. But was Evelyn the victim, or the master of this game? He turned to the clues, his voice deliberate. The wine, it contained a trace of cyanide, not enough to kill but to suggest murder. The overturned chair, the gouged window frame, the green silk scrap in the lock, these were staged, to create the illusion of a crime. The secret staircase leading to an attic chamber held Evelyn's diary, speaking of a masked stranger in fear for her life. The telegram claiming she was in London was a forgery sent to mislead. But why? And by whom? Lord Sinclair shifted, his voice gruff. Get to the point, Poirot. Where's my daughter? Cecilia's eyes narrowed, Victor's hands trembled, Maggie clutched her locket, and Dr. Marrow's face remained impassive. Poirot raised a hand. Patience, monsieur. The truth, it unfolds like a flower. Poirot began with the locked room. The door, locked from within, the key in place. How could Evelyn vanish? The answer lies in a simple trick. A fine wire threaded through the keyhole pulled the key into the lock after the door was closed from outside. The windows, bolted, were never opened. The gouge in the frame, a distraction. Evelyn left her room alive through the secret staircase, which she knew well from childhood games. She was not taken. She chose to disappear. Gasps rippled through the room. Maggie's voice broke. Alive? But why would she leave us? Poirot's gaze softened but remained sharp. To expose a traitor, mademoiselle. Evelyn suspected danger, and she crafted a plan with one ally, Dr. Felix Marrow. Marrow's spectacles glinted as he nodded slightly. It's true, he said, his voice steady. Evelyn feared for her life. She confided in me weeks ago, saying someone close was plotting against her. We planned her disappearance to draw the culprit out. I gave her a mild sedative to calm her nerves, nothing more. Poirot nodded. Oui, monsieur le docteur. Your laudanum was harmless, though its scratched label raised suspicion. A red herring, perhaps unintentional. Poirot turned to the cyanide. The wine, it was tampered with, not to kill but to alarm. The almond scent was a trace of cyanide placed deliberately to suggest murder. But who had access to such a poison? His eyes flicked to Cecilia. Madame Langston, your greenhouse holds apricot pits from which cyanide can be derived. Your missing vial, your journal of poisons, they point to you. Cecilia's face flushed. I told you that vial was stolen. I'm no murderer. Poirot held up a hand. No, madame, you are not. But your knowledge was used by another. He turned to Victor. Monsieur Hammond, your debts made you desperate. The forged letter, your footprint in the greenhouse. Did you seek to poison Evelyn for her fortune? Victor leapt to his feet. No. I admit the letter was a lie to win her, but I'd never hurt her. Poirot's gaze was unrelenting, but he moved on. He faced Maggie, his voice gentle but firm. Mademoiselle Poole, your locket, your presence near Evelyn's room at midnight. Your lie about the library. Your heart, it burns for Evelyn, oui. Not as a friend, but with a love that consumes. Maggie's face crumpled, tears streaming. I love her, yes, but I'd never harm her. I only wanted to protect her. Poirot paused, his eyes narrowing. And yet, mademoiselle, you did more than love. You betrayed. He produced a small vial found hidden in Maggie's room during a second search. This, it contains cyanide, matching the trace in the wine. You placed it there intending to poison Evelyn, then frame Madame Langston with the silk scrap from her shawl. Maggie gasped, shaking her head. No, I didn't. But Poirot's voice cut through. You did, mademoiselle. Evelyn's diary revealed her suspicion of you. She wrote of your growing obsession, your jealousy of her engagement to Victor. You slipped a sedative into her wine, not cyanide, for you lacked the nerve to kill outright. You planned to stage her death later, but Evelyn, she was cleverer. With Dr. Marrow's help, she hid in the attic, watching you confess. A door creaked open and Evelyn Sinclair stepped into the hall, her sapphire gown pristine, her face pale but resolute. The room erupted in cries. Lord Sinclair rushed to her, but Poirot raised a hand. Mademoiselle Evelyn, you will confirm? Evelyn nodded, her voice steady. I suspected Maggie for weeks. Her love turned to possession. I staged my disappearance to force her hand with Felix's help. I hid in the attic, waiting. Maggie collapsed, sobbing. I only wanted you to need me, Evelyn. I couldn't lose you. Poirot's expression softened, but his voice was firm. Love, mademoiselle, when twisted, becomes a poison deadlier than cyanide. You planned her harm, and for this justice will come. The police summoned by Hastings entered to take Maggie away. Poirot turned to the others, his voice calm. The telegram, it was Maggie's final deception, sent to suggest Evelyn fled. The silk scrap, the chair, the cyanide, all part of her plan to mislead. But Poirot, he sees through the shadows. Chapter 7. Justice Served. The library of Claret Court was a sanctuary of quiet reflection, its walls bearing witness to the unraveling of a mystery that had shaken the Sinclair family to its core. The evening of October 1927 had settled over the estate, the air heavy with the weight of truth revealed. Hercule Poirot sat in a velvet chair, his small frame exuding a quiet authority, his mustache impeccable as ever. The fire crackled softly, casting flickering shadows across the faces of those gathered. Evelyn Sinclair, her sapphire gown now replaced by a simpler dress, her face pale but resolute. Lord Reginald Sinclair, his stern features softened by relief. Cecilia Langston, her sharp eyes subdued. Victor Hammond, his charm shattered, and Dr. Felix Marrow, his medical bag at his side, his expression one of quiet vindication. Maggie Poole was absent, her fate sealed by her own confession. Captain Arthur Hastings, standing by the window, broke the silence. Poirot, you've done it again, he said, his voice tinged with awe. Evelyn alive, Maggie unmasked. It's extraordinary. But how did you know? And what happens now? Poirot's eyes twinkled, his voice calm but deliberate. Mon ami, the little gray cells, they see what the heart hides. Now we ensure justice and perhaps a measure of peace for Claret Court. The revelation in the grand hall had been a thunderbolt. Maggie Poole, driven by an obsessive love for Evelyn, had planned to poison her with a sedative-laced wine, intending to frame Cecilia Langston with a stolen vial of cyanide and a scrap of her green silk shawl. Evelyn, suspecting Maggie's betrayal, had orchestrated her own disappearance with Dr. Marrow's aid, hiding in a secret attic chamber accessed via a concealed staircase. The overturned chair, the gouged window frame, and the trace of cyanide were staged to suggest a crime, drawing Maggie into a confession under Poirot's relentless questioning. The forged telegram claiming Evelyn was in London was Maggie's final attempt to mislead, but Poirot's keen mind had seen through every deception. Now, as the police led Maggie away in handcuffs, her sobs echoing through the hall, the household faced the aftermath. Poirot rose, addressing the group with a measured tone. Mesdames et messieurs, the mystery of the vanishing heiress is solved, but the heart of Claret Court bears scars. Let us reflect that we may heal. Evelyn stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Monsieur Poirot, I owe you my life. Maggie was my dearest friend, but her love turned to poison. I saw it growing. Her jealousy of Victor, her need to control me. When she started asking about my will, I knew I had to act. She glanced at Dr. Marrow, gratitude in her eyes. Felix helped me plan the ruse. I hid in the attic, watching, waiting for her to betray herself. Poirot nodded, his gaze warm but piercing. Mademoiselle, your courage was admirable. The diary, the staircase, the staged clues, they were a trap well set. But tell Poirot, why did you suspect Mademoiselle Poole above all others? Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. She changed this past year. Her gifts, the locket, the notes became possessive. In Paris, she followed me even when I asked for privacy. When I found her reading Cecilia's journals, I knew she was searching for something dangerous. I confided in Felix, and we planned to expose her. Dr. Marrow adjusted his spectacles, his voice soft. Evelyn was terrified, monsieur. I couldn't let her face it alone. The sedative I gave her was harmless, meant to calm her nerves while she hid. I never imagined Maggie's obsession ran so deep. Poirot's mustache twitched. Your loyalty, monsieur, it is noted, but the scratched label on your laudanum, it caused suspicion, no? Marrow flushed. A careless accident, nothing more. Poirot turned to Cecilia, whose bitterness had softened in the wake of the truth. Madame Langston, your greenhouse, your journals, they were used against you. Yet you harbored resentment for Mademoiselle Evelyn's inheritance. Do you see now the danger of such feelings? Cecilia's lips tightened, but she nodded. I was wrong to envy her. I'll focus on my plants, not grudges. Poirot's smile was faint but approving. A wise choice, madame. Victor Hammond, his face haggard, stood at the edge of the group. Monsieur Poirot, I admit my faults. The forged letter, my debts. I was a fool, but I loved Evelyn. I'm leaving Claret Court. She deserves better. Evelyn's gaze softened, but she said nothing. Poirot inclined his head. Monsieur, honesty is the first step to redemption. Go and make a life worthy of it. Lord Sinclair, his stern demeanor cracked by relief, approached Evelyn, his voice gruff but tender. Evelyn, I was too harsh, too controlling. Your will, your choices, they're yours. Can you forgive me? Evelyn took his hand, tears spilling. Father, I want us to start anew. The Sinclair legacy will stand, but on my terms. Poirot observed their reconciliation, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. As the group dispersed, Poirot and Hastings remained in the library, the fire casting a warm glow. Hastings, ever curious, pressed, Poirot, how did you piece it all together? The wire in the lock, the diary, it was like a play. Poirot chuckled softly. Mon ami, it was a performance, oui, but one with real stakes. The wire, it explained the locked room, a simple trick, yet clever. The diary revealed Evelyn's fear and Maggie's locket, her lies, her presence at midnight. They pointed to her heart's darkness. The little gray cells, they align the pieces. Poirot rose, adjusting his coat. But we must reflect, Hastings. The heart, it is the most dangerous locked room of all. Maggie's love became obsession, twisting her into a would-be killer. Evelyn's courage, it saved her, but at what cost to her trust? We solved the crime, but the human soul, it remains a mystery. The next morning, as Poirot and Hastings prepared to depart Claret Court, the estate seemed lighter, its shadows softened by truth. Evelyn stood at the door, her smile genuine. Monsieur Poirot, you've given me a second chance. I'll use my fortune for good, charities perhaps, to honor my mother. Poirot bowed. Mademoiselle, you have the heart of a lion. Use it wisely. The motor car crunched down the gravel drive, Claret Court fading into the mist. Hastings, glancing back, sighed. A rum affair, Poirot. But you saw through it all. Poirot's eyes twinkled. Always, mon ami. The truth it cannot hide from Hercule Poirot. Chapter 8. Shadows of Betrayal. The late afternoon light filtered through Claret Court's tall windows, casting a somber glow over the dining room, where the grandeur of chandeliers and polished silver seemed at odds with the raw emotions within. It was October 1927, and the estate, so recently a stage for deception, now bore the weight of truth unveiled. Hercule Poirot stood near the head of the table, his small frame a beacon of calm amidst the storm. The locked-room mystery of Evelyn Sinclair's disappearance, door secured, windows bolted, key inside, had been solved. Maggie Poole, driven by an obsessive love, had planned to poison Evelyn with a sedative-laced wine, staging clues like a cyanide trace, an overturned chair and a green silk scrap to frame Cecilia Langston. Evelyn, with Dr. Felix Marrow's help, had hidden in a secret attic chamber, exposing Maggie's betrayal. The forged telegram suggesting Evelyn was in London had been Maggie's final deception, but Poirot's genius had unraveled it all. Now, as Maggie was taken away by the police, Claret Court faced the task of healing. Captain Arthur Hastings, seated nearby, rubbed his temples, his face a mix of relief and disbelief. "Poirot, it's over, but I can't shake the chill. Maggie, a girl we thought was Evelyn's friend. How do they move on from this?" Poirot's mustache twitched, his eyes gleaming with quiet wisdom. "Mon ami, the heart is a labyrinth, and betrayal cuts deep. But in its wounds, there is also the chance for renewal. Let us see how Claret Court mends." The suspects gathered around the table were a tableau of fractured emotions. Evelyn Sinclair, her auburn hair loosely pinned, sat with a quiet strength, her eyes red from tears but resolute. Lord Reginald Sinclair, her father, gripped the table's edge, his stern features battling guilt and relief. Cecilia Langston, her usual sharpness dulled, stared into her tea, her fingers trembling. Dr. Felix Marrow, his medical bag at his feet, maintained a stoic calm, though his spectacles hid a flicker of concern. Victor Hammond, Evelyn's disgraced fiancé, lingered at the room's edge, his charm shattered by his confessed forgery and debts. Poirot addressed the group, his voice soft but commanding. "Mesdames et messieurs, the truth has been revealed and Mademoiselle Poole faces justice. Yet the heart of Claret Court beats still, wounded but strong. We must speak now, not of crime, but of what follows." Evelyn rose, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Monsieur Poirot, you've saved me and I'm grateful. But Maggie—" She paused, swallowing hard. "She was my friend since we were children. Her love turned to poison, and I'll carry that pain always. But I won't let it define me. I'm meeting my solicitor tomorrow to begin my charity work, as I promised." Her gaze met her father's. "I want Claret Court to be a place of hope, not secrets." Lord Sinclair's voice was gruff but tender. "Evelyn, I was wrong to control you. Your mother's memory, your choices, they're yours. I'll support you, whatever you decide." Evelyn's eyes softened, a tear escaping. "Thank you, Father. That means everything." Cecilia set down her teacup, her voice quieter than usual. "I've been bitter, Evelyn, resenting your inheritance. Maggie's betrayal, it's a mirror to my own faults. I'd like to stay, help with your plans if you'll allow it." Evelyn nodded, a faint smile breaking through. "Of course, Aunt Cecilia. Let's rebuild together." Dr. Marrow cleared his throat, his tone measured. "I'm relieved you're safe, Evelyn. My part in your plan was small, but I'd do it again. I'll return to London soon. My practice needs me." Poirot's gaze lingered on him. "Monsieur, your loyalty was her shield. But tell Poirot this laudanum vial with its scratched label, why the secrecy?" Marrow flushed, a rare smile breaking through. "A clumsy mistake, monsieur. I'm not so clever as to hide clues from you." Poirot chuckled, satisfied. Victor, his face haggard, stepped forward. "Evelyn, I'm leaving tonight. My lies, the forged letter, my debts, they've cost me your trust. I'm sorry." Evelyn's gaze was steady but kind. "Victor, you broke my heart, but I wish you well. Find a path that's honest." Victor nodded, his shoulders slumping, and left the room, his footsteps echoing in the hall. As the family dispersed, Poirot and Hastings retired to the library where a fire crackled warmly. Hastings, ever inquisitive, leaned forward. "Poirot, it's a tidy ending, but something nags at me. Maggie's obsession, could there be more to it? Those Paris letters Evelyn mentioned, the masked stranger. Are we sure it was all Maggie's doing?" Poirot's eyes narrowed, his fingers tapping his notebook. "Mon ami, you are perceptive. The little gray cells, they too sense a shadow. Let us examine one last thing." Poirot led Hastings to Maggie's room, now empty, where a final search had been conducted before her arrest. Beneath a loose floorboard, Poirot found a small notebook, its pages filled with Maggie's handwriting. Most were love notes to Evelyn, fervent and obsessive, but one entry stood out, dated a month prior. "The Paris letters were my leverage, but another knows. If they speak, all is lost." Poirot's mustache twitched. "Curieux, non?" Maggie feared exposure, not by Evelyn, but by another. This masked stranger, perhaps it was not only her creation? Hastings frowned. Another blackmailer? But who? Everyone's accounted for. Poirot's gaze was distant. "The heart, mon ami, hides many faces. This notebook, it suggests Maggie had an accomplice or a rival in her scheme. We must inform Mademoiselle Evelyn. She is not yet free of shadows." They returned to Evelyn, who was in the garden pruning roses with a newfound calm. Poirot showed her the notebook, his voice gentle. "Mademoiselle, Maggie's confession was not complete. She feared another who knew of the Paris letters. Have you received any threats since?" Evelyn's face paled. "No, but Maggie sent a letter from her cell this morning asking forgiveness. It mentioned a locket's clasp. Odd, but I haven't checked it yet." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Then we shall, mademoiselle. The truth, it leaves no stone unturned." Chapter 9. Echoes of Truth. The dawn at Claret Court was a tapestry of light and shadow, the estate's grandeur softened by the gentle glow of an October morning in 1927. Hercule Poirot stood on the terrace, his small frame a silhouette against the rising sun, his hands clasped behind his back. The mystery of Evelyn Sinclair's disappearance from a locked room, door secured, windows bolted, key inside, had been solved. Maggie Poole, driven by an obsessive love, had planned to poison Evelyn, staging clues to frame Cecilia Langston. Evelyn, with Dr. Felix Marrow's aid, had orchestrated her vanishing, hiding in a secret attic chamber to expose Maggie's betrayal. The cyanide-laced wine, the overturned chair, the green silk scrap, and the forged telegram had all been unraveled by Poirot's genius. Maggie was now in custody, and Claret Court seemed to breathe again. Yet as Poirot gazed at the gardens, his little gray cells hummed with the sense that one final thread remained untied. Captain Arthur Hastings joined him, his face a mix of relief and curiosity. "Poirot, it's over, isn't it? Evelyn's safe, Maggie's confessed, and the family's reconciling. Yet you look as if you're still solving a puzzle." Poirot's mustache twitched, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Mon ami, the case is closed. But the human heart, it is never so simple. There is always one more secret, one more echo of truth. Come, we must speak with Mademoiselle Evelyn once more." In the drawing room, Evelyn Sinclair sat by a window, her auburn hair catching the light, her face a blend of strength and vulnerability. She wore a simple cream dress, a far cry from the sapphire gown of her birthday celebration, but her eyes held the same fire. Lord Reginald Sinclair, her father, stood nearby, his stern demeanor softened by their recent reconciliation. Cecilia Langston, her aunt, sipped tea, her bitterness replaced by a cautious warmth. Dr. Felix Marrow, ever reserved, lingered by the fireplace, his medical bag at his side. Victor Hammond, the disgraced fiancé, had left Claret Court the previous day, his forged letter and debts exposed. Poirot addressed Evelyn, his voice gentle but probing. Mademoiselle, your courage in staging your disappearance was magnifique. You exposed Mademoiselle Poole's treachery and justice is served. Yet Poirot senses there is more you have not said. The diary, it spoke of a masked stranger in Paris. Was this merely a ruse, or does another shadow linger? Evelyn's hands tightened in her lap, her gaze flickering to Dr. Marrow before returning to Poirot. You see everything, don't you, monsieur? The masked stranger was partly a fiction, yes, to lure Maggie into revealing herself, but there was truth in it. In Paris, I received anonymous letters demanding payment to keep a secret, my mother's secret, not mine. She paused, her voice trembling. My mother, before her death, had an affair. The letters threatened to expose it, ruining the Sinclair name. I paid to keep it quiet, but I never saw the blackmailer's face. The room fell silent, Lord Sinclair's face paling. Evelyn, why didn't you tell me? He asked, his voice hoarse. Evelyn met his gaze. I wanted to protect you, father. The scandal would have broken you. Cecilia set down her teacup, her eyes wide. Your mother? I suspected, but I never knew for certain. Dr. Marrow remained silent, but his fingers tightened on his bag. Poirot's eyes gleamed. This blackmailer, mademoiselle, you believe they are far away, oui? Yet Poirot wonders if they were closer than you thought. He produced a small envelope found in the attic chamber during a final search. Inside was a note written in a disguised hand. Pay, or the Sinclair secret is revealed. Leave funds at the Paris Café, midnight. The paper matched the forged telegram sent to suggest Evelyn was in London. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured. The same hand that sent the telegram sent this note. Maggie Poole. She was not only obsessed with you, mademoiselle. She was the masked stranger. Gasps filled the room. Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth. Maggie! But how? Poirot paced, his voice deliberate. Mademoiselle Poole's love for you was a fire that consumed her reason. In Paris, she discovered your mother's secret, perhaps through old letters, perhaps through gossip. She used it to bind you to her, demanding money not for gain, but to control you. When you returned to Claret Court and announced your will's revision, her desperation grew. She planned to sedate you, stage a poisoning, and frame Madame Langston, ensuring you remained hers forever. The cyanide, the silk scrap, the overturned chair, these were her tools of deception. But your diary, your attic hideaway, and Dr. Marrow's aid outwitted her. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. I trusted her, monsieur. She was my friend since childhood. To think she'd blackmail me. Dr. Marrow stepped forward, his voice soft. I helped Evelyn because I saw Maggie's obsession growing. I found one of those letters in Paris slipped under Evelyn's door. I urged her to act. Poirot nodded. Your loyalty, monsieur. It was her salvation. Lord Sinclair, his voice breaking, addressed Poirot. You've saved my daughter twice, monsieur. First from Maggie's plot, now from this shadow of the past. What can I do? Poirot's gaze was kind but firm. Monsieur, you must rebuild trust with your daughter. The Sinclair legacy, it is not in wealth, but in truth. Cecilia, her voice softer than before, spoke up. I've been bitter, Evelyn, resenting your inheritance. But I see now family is more than money. I'll stay if you'll have me. Evelyn smiled, taking her aunt's hand. Of course, Aunt Cecilia. Let's start anew. As the family reconciled, Poirot turned to Hastings, who was scribbling furiously. Poirot, this blackmail twist, it's incredible. Maggie as the masked stranger, how did you know? Poirot's mustache twitched. The telegram, mon ami, it was typed with the same smudged S as the blackmail note. The little gray cells, they noticed such details. Maggie's love was a prison she built for Evelyn, and her own guilt unlocked it. The next day, as Poirot and Hastings prepared to leave Claret Court, the estate glowed under a clear sky. Evelyn met them at the door, her face radiant. Monsieur Poirot, I'm giving half my fortune to charity in my mother's name. The scandal can't hurt us now. Poirot bowed. Mademoiselle, you have turned pain into purpose. That is true strength. The motor car rolled down the gravel drive, Claret Court fading into the distance. Hastings sighed. A remarkable case, Poirot. Love, blackmail, a locked room, you saw through it all. Poirot's eyes twinkled. The heart, mon ami, is the most intricate puzzle, but with order and method, even its secrets are revealed. Chapter 10. A new dawn. The morning sun bathed Claret Court in a golden glow, its Georgian facade standing proud against the rolling Kent hills. It was late October 1927, and the estate, so recently a stage for deception and danger, seemed to exhale, its walls cleansed by the truth. Hercule Poirot stood in the entrance hall, his small frame a beacon of order amidst the echoes of chaos. The locked room mystery of Evelyn Sinclair's disappearance, door secured, windows bolted, key inside, had been solved. Maggie Poole, driven by an obsessive love and revealed as the masked stranger who blackmailed Evelyn in Paris, was now in custody. Her plan to poison the heiress and frame Cecilia Langston thwarted by Evelyn's courage and Poirot's genius. The staged clues, cyanide-tainted wine, overturned chair, green silk scrap, and forged telegram, had been unraveled, and Claret Court was poised for renewal. Yet as Poirot's fingers brushed the leather notebook in his hand, his little gray cells hummed with the sense that one final note remained to be played. Captain Arthur Hastings joined him, his face bright with relief but tinged with curiosity. Poirot, it's truly over now, isn't it? Evelyn's safe, Maggie's gone, and the family's mending. Yet you've got that look, like you've spotted one last clue. Poirot's mustache twitched, a faint smile curving his lips. Mon ami, the case is closed, but life, it is never so tidy. The heart leaves traces, and Poirot, he listens. Let us walk the gardens where truths often bloom. The two strolled through Claret Court's rose garden, the air fragrant with late blooms. Evelyn Sinclair emerged from the house, her auburn hair catching the sunlight, her cream dress a symbol of her newfound resolve. She carried a letter, its wax seal broken, and her expression was a blend of determination and melancholy. Monsieur Poirot, she said, her voice steady. You've given me more than safety. You've given me clarity. I'm ready to move forward, but there's something you should know. Poirot inclined his head, his eyes sharp. Mademoiselle, you have faced betrayal with courage. What is this letter that brings such a shadow to your eyes? Evelyn handed it to him, her fingers trembling slightly. It was a note from Maggie, written from her cell, delivered that morning. Evelyn, it read, I loved you too much and it broke me. Forgive me, not for my sake, but for yours. There's one last secret. Check the locket's clasp. Poirot's gaze sharpened, recalling the silver locket Maggie had clutched, inscribed with "Forever Mine," and containing Evelyn's portrait. Evelyn produced the locket, her hands steady as she opened its hidden clasp, revealing a tiny folded paper. It was a map, crudely drawn, marking a spot in Claret Court's rose garden. Maggie gave this to me years ago, Evelyn said, but I never thought to check the clasp. What could it mean? Poirot's eyes gleamed. A final confession, perhaps. Let us see. They followed the map to a secluded corner of the garden where a stone bench sat beneath a trellis of climbing roses. Poirot knelt, his gloved hands brushing the earth, and uncovered a small tin box buried beneath the soil. Inside was a bundle of letters, yellowed with age, written in a hand not Maggie's but eerily familiar. Poirot read aloud, his voice soft. "My dearest, our love must remain hidden, but it burns eternal." The letters were from Evelyn's mother, addressed to an unnamed lover, confirming the affair Maggie had used for blackmail. Evelyn's breath caught. "These are what Maggie found in Paris, aren't they? She used them against me." Poirot nodded. "Oui, mademoiselle. Maggie discovered these in an old trunk, perhaps in your family's Paris home. She wielded them as a weapon, not for money, but to bind you to her through fear. This box, it is her final act of remorse, a gift to free you." Hastings, peering over Poirot's shoulder, frowned. "But why hide them here? Why not destroy them?" Poirot's mustache twitched. "The heart, mon ami, it clings to what it loves, even in guilt. Maggie could not destroy the proof of her power over Evelyn, but in the end, she chose to return it." Evelyn clutched the letters, her eyes resolute. "I'll burn these tonight. My mother's secret dies with me. I'm giving half my fortune to charity as I promised to honor her memory, not her mistakes." Poirot bowed slightly. "Mademoiselle, you turn pain into purpose. That is the mark of true strength." They returned to the house where Lord Reginald Sinclair awaited in the library. His stern features had softened, his eyes warm as he embraced Evelyn. "You've taught me, my dear, that family is more than legacy. I'll support your charities, and Claret Court will be a home, not a fortress." Evelyn smiled. A weight lifted. "Thank you, Father. We'll build something new together." Cecilia Langston, seated nearby, set aside her botanical journal, her once sharp gaze now gentle. "Evelyn, I've been a fool, consumed by envy. I'd like to stay, help with your plans. Perhaps a garden for the community." Evelyn took her hand. "I'd love that, Aunt Cecilia." Poirot observed, his heart warmed by their reconciliation. Dr. Felix Marot approached, his medical bag slung over his shoulder. "Monsieur Poirot, I'm leaving Claret Court. Evelyn's safe now, and my work here is done. I'll return to my practice in London." Poirot's eyes twinkled. "Monsieur, your loyalty was her shield. But tell Poirot the scratched laudanum vial. Was it truly an accident?" Marot flushed, then smiled faintly. "A clumsy moment, nothing more. You miss nothing, do you?" Poirot chuckled. "The little gray cells, they are vigilant." As the household prepared for a new chapter, Poirot and Hastings walked to the waiting motor car. The gravel crunched beneath their feet, and Claret Court stood proud against the horizon. Hastings, ever reflective, sighed. "Poirot, this case, it was more than a locked room, wasn't it? It was about love, betrayal, and redemption." Poirot nodded, his voice soft. "Oui, mon ami. The locked room of the heart is the greatest mystery. Maggie's love became her prison, but Evelyn's courage set her free. And these letters," he gestured to the box Evelyn held, "they are the final key." The motor car pulled away, Claret Court fading into the golden light. Poirot leaned back, his eyes half closed. "The world, it is full of such puzzles, Hastings. But with order and method we bring light to the shadows." Hastings grinned. "And a touch of genius, Poirot."